Danny, what do you think of the car?
Oh, that's great. Did I get your
No.
My friend and often assistant Danny and I recently checked out the Texas Frightmare Weekend horror convention for our second year in a row. It was pretty rad. The week began with a Zine Night in Tyler, where I premiered my brand new mini prints and sold my zine, Loneliest Colors. It's fun to see events like this around Tyler that promote the arts and encourage creative communities to mix and mingle with everyone else. Here are those mini prints and zines, and you can buy them by clicking the link in the description. Thanks to Allison Matlock for the invitation, and thanks to everyone who paid me a visit. Talking about a horror convention on a photography vlog might seem a bit odd for some, and mixing the commonly considered low-brow genre with a high-brow fine art might ruffle some feathers, and a little more than a year ago, I might have actually agreed with you. I generally thought I did not care a lot for horror as a genre. Standard arguments would follow about exploitation and sexism, but last year my best friend Danny was having trouble finding a friend to attend the Texas Frightmare Weekend convention with. I figured I could at least enjoy Danny's enjoyment, and a lot of the guests were really interesting, so I decided to go. Just look at these photos. Maybe you won't see it, but there's a darkness in all of these. There is fear and danger in the shadows. There's a tension I work for in every shot. Inspired even in part by the intense box art seen on VHS covers in rental stores through the 80s and 90s. And actually there's going to be more of that in a minute, so hold on. Not to mention Laura Mulvey's landmark male gaze essay is decades old, and the landscape of movies is remarkably different. Sexism isn't cured, but things have evolved. Anyway, back to 2018. I started looking at the guest list and I was really into a lot of it. The Kids from It were there, a book which I had obsessively just read a year prior. Whilst enjoying the Saturday of Texas Frightmare Weekend 2018 with Danny, I came to the realization I actually do like horror movies. Texas Frightmare Weekend is one of the most popular horror conventions in the country, held the first weekend of May. This is the second one I've attended, as I mentioned, again joining Danny. There's a lot of standard con fare, cosplay, celebrities, panels, all of course encompassing the horror genre. In addition to subscribing to my channel and turning on notifications and liking my videos, you can join my Patreon to support my work. I have 4 different tiers for various levels of support. Click the link in the description to find out what benefits you can get, including a quarterly zine and monthly print mailed to you and signed by me. Thanks for the support. Kindertrauma is a term that has come up recently, which is generally defined by sites such as Urban Dictionary as a form of trauma experienced by children watching age-inappropriate entertainment. Basically, as someone who was a kid in the 80s, Optimus Prime, that horse in the Neverending Story, melting Nazis, but really, who doesn't like melting Nazis? Apparently a lot of YouTube doesn't, but still, Nazis suck. Speaking of traumatic things, and back on the topic of VHS covers in the horror section, my tense forays into said horror sections of local video stores apparently were far from unusual, as I saw in this year's Shockwaves live podcast. Shockwaves is a great horror podcast, and this episode was all about memorable VHS horror box art. I mean, yeah, it's some freaky stuff. I was astounded so many people had similar experiences. I'm apparently not the only person who is completely freaked out by ghoulies or monkey shines. That fear played into the allure though, and franchises like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street really sold the experience with their covers. I highly recommend checking out this episode when it posts, maybe in a few days. I won't play much of the audio here just for copyright purposes. I also got to meet the Shockwaves crew, and they were very nice and even took this picture with me. Dr. Rebecca McKendry, one of the hosts, is also just a really cool academic online idol of mine. She teaches courses at USC I'd love to take, and we talked about photography too. We primarily discussed Gregory Cruton's work. I wish I could have asked her something on camera, but everyone was so busy that I decided to just leave it at that. At the Dead Meat Meetup. Dead Meetup? Speaking of meeting good people, I got to meet James A. Janice and Chelsea Rebecca of Dead Meat, one of my favorite YouTube channels. They planned an informal meetup outside that grew to epic proportions and had to be broken up prematurely because it was too big for security. The good news is that they will officially have a presence at Texas Frightmare Weekend next year. And I mean, just look at this crowd. This is crazy and awesome. Thank you. There were a lot of other fun things here too, like the decorations at the hotel, all the cool cosplay, which you'll see some of the pictures up here. I don't recognize a lot of it, but Danny did, and she was thrilled. And I got a couple pictures too. That's part of the fun. I met Felissa Rose right here of the infamous Sleepaway Camp movie franchise, and yeah, she was super nice, really thrilled to be there, and was just absolutely exuberant with everyone, everyone's interaction. And yeah, it's just lots of fun people all over, lots of inspiration artistically and just in general. People making things, movies, cosplays, and other creative things like this. There were other fun things like this Lance Henricksen panel moderated by Rebecca McKendry. It was fun to hear about his late start in movie acting and how he works and how he just clawed his way up and what he did in life before he struck it. I'm not quite mega famous or anything, but still, like, he was in Aliens and a ton of other movies, and I think he's great, and it was really cool to hear his career advice. There was actually quite a bit about hard work and the easy jobs being not necessarily the best jobs at not only Lance's panel, but also the Bruce Campbell and Sam and Ted Raimi panel for The Evil Dead, and that was really neat to hear. We also caught a screening of The Dead Center. The star, Shane Carruth, went to Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas, where I also earned my BA. His very distinctive and intense movies are highly recommended, and this one fits his style perfectly, even if he didn't direct it. If you dig cerebral horror and tension, this is the way to go. Some nice shots in there too. Like I said, at first I didn't think I liked horror, but I really do. The genre is very interesting, and I find a lot about it very appealing, which is actually possibly the widest genre. I grew up preferring sci-fi, but have soured on a negative attitude I see coming out of the genre's fans in recent years. Gatekeeping, sexism, racism, out of control entitlement. A lot of things that seem to not be as overwhelming right now in horror circles. And another thing I dig is that anything goes. You can't really be too over the top in horror. Production values can be low. That's often part of the charm. And when you combine wonderful production values and great horror, you have something special. Think Alien or Get Out. Favorite moments include meeting Charlie and Scott from Anthrax, meeting Elvira, Cassandra Peterson, who is super awesome, meeting Bruce Campbell, who lives up to his legendary status, these cool things like the actual Battle Delta from Ash vs. Evil Dead, and just the enthusiasm of all the fans and the friendliness of everyone there. It was just really neat to see and really inspiring, and that's one of the things that inspires my work. I don't know about you, but I'd like to encourage anyone to reconsider even things you strongly believe about yourself and open up to new experiences and insights. You'll be amazed at what you can find. You might even find a new annual tradition with a dear friend. We're already planning for Texas Frightmare Weekend 2020. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't. Turn on notifications, and I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.